Hey everyone, it's Emil sending a book check-in on Darren Hardy's The Entrepreneur Roller Coaster. This is for section 1, the introduction. The title of this section is called The Ticket Booth, To Ride or Not to Ride. So this part of the book talks a lot about Darren Hardy's background, which I had never known before, but apparently his father's plan for him was to have him go to college and become a lawyer. He felt that the right way to do things was to go to school, get a good education, and then come out and get a great job with good pay, and that was your meal ticket for life. Darren Hardy had other plans though, and he couldn't see himself working for someone else because that was, that wasn't anything on his radar. So one day, actually by accident, or I guess circumstantially, some friend of his called him up and told him that his brother was raving about this great DVD. They were all going to get pizza and beer and come over to I guess the guy's house to watch this video. So he had no idea what the movie was going to be about. He thought it was maybe something that was a little bit less than PG rated, since they were getting beer and pizza to watch it. So he was in. And as far as the video is concerned, when it was all said and done, it was only about 20 minutes long. The other two were kind of like dumbfounded, but this Darren Hardy was amazed. He was very like jaw on the ground, didn't know how to react to it. And it turns out that it was actually from some home water filtration system wholesaler that was offering people the opportunity to buy it at wholesale and turn around and sell it at retail. So it was a basic sales job. And I guess being that he was 18, he'd never seen anything like that before. So he was really excited about it. So he knew that he had to come up with the initial capital to make that $5,000 investment. So he started mowing lawns and collecting nails at construction sites for penny a piece, and even doing surveys at like bus stops and rail stations and things like that. So it was basically the idea of owning his own business and finally having something that was his, and that he didn't have to really report to anybody. He had more control over that. So controlling his own finances, and the thought of being 18 and having a minimum wage job, that wasn't something that really appealed to him. So it was like somebody had turned on the brightest light bulb in his head, in his mind, and that's the way he explains it. So he did finally come up with that $5,000, and when he made that investment, they shipped I think it was 2 pallets worth of 2 pallets worth of filtration systems to his house, and he put them in the garage. So he starts talking about the different phases of emotion as he's going through this. First was the inspiration and excitement of the video that he saw, and how he saw finally a way out. Then was the hard work and determination behind coming up with the funds. And then came the excitement of cutting that check to get the initial stock of the item. Then came the first hit of resistance when his father came home and saw 2 pallets worth of filtration systems in his garage. He said, "Get these things out of my garage. I've got nowhere to park my car." So, boom, first hit of resistance. And he said, "Well, what am I supposed to do with them?" He said, "Well, how about you sell them?" So his father was very matter of fact. You want something to cry about, I'll give you something to cry about. He actually compares him to Gunny Hartman from Full Metal Jacket, which is one of my favorite movies. So it was just interesting how he's already starting to get these little roller coaster effects from what he's going through. And so his father telling him to go out and sell them, oh, I didn't think about that part. Now I've actually got to get up off my butt and do something. So that was the nerve-wracking part, putting yourself out there in front of other people trying to make this sale. So he was very nervous, and after I don't know how many houses he went to, pretty much everyone in his neighborhood, he ended up at the end of the day with 0, having sold nothing. So that was the frustrating and disappointing part. So of course he had his ace in the hole, which was his grandma. So he set up a time to go meet with his grandma, and of course she bought whatever the highest upsale of the product that he had available. And then she started parading him around her neighborhood as her beautiful grandson who could never do anything wrong in anyone's eyes. And he sold 18 more in her neighborhood. So that was the excitement part, where he was really on this high of selling 18 products, and now he's doing a great job. And then a couple days later he gets a phone call, and as it turns out, he was the one doing the installing, and he didn't do it right, and there was a gasket that he placed backwards, and it was leaking. So basically his grandparents' house had 2 inches of flooding, and there were 18 other homes in the neighborhood with a ticking time bomb of water that was just waiting to happen. So of course then there's that disappointment and embarrassment on that end. So the moral, or not moral, but I guess the takeaway from this story was that was his first taste of entrepreneurship. And he knew that even though it had a lot of lows, the highs were enough to keep him going. And he was very excited about that. And he said that that's actually what got him hooked. So he talks about that's how something that every entrepreneur has to expect and has to go through. And they're going to go through it again and again. And then he gets into about how we're in a tipping point right now in society, in the way economics are working, in the way everything is working, where if you look at the industrial age, in the industrial age, that era was really reserved for the elites. You had to have the resources, the money, the connections, all of those things to make more money. So that's why those elites were really hyper elites. They were wealthier than anyone else. But if you look at the way things are going now, America, or the world, the global economy as a whole, is churning out millionaire after millionaire. I think in the year 2013, it said that there were 400 new millionaires, or I don't know how many, but it basically explaining that we're in a critical point in the evolution of mankind's finances, where now everything is available to everybody. Right? You have the whole world's knowledge at your fingertips. You have access to anything. Anything you want done, you can get it done through the internet. And if you're not taking advantage of that, you're going to miss the ride. You're going to miss the roller coaster. Regardless of what's coming, there are people who are not as financially stable as you, people who are in a lower socioeconomic class, people who know a lot less than you, and they're still going to take advantage of this roller coaster, and they're going to be very successful from it. So he's basically explaining that the purpose of this book is to explain to you what to expect, what's coming, and to help you foresee that and push through it. Because knowing that right now you're at a critical point, one day you should envision yourself one day being 40, 50 years from now, bouncing your great grandchild or your great grandchild on your knee, and your grandchild or great grandchild looking around and saying, how did you do this? And you saying, I was alive at a very critical point in time, and I did what I needed to do to make this happen. So I'm actually really excited to read this book. I want to read one little section. He says, I want to inspire you with what's possible for you, your family, and your future once you step up to this ride. I also want to warn you about the loop-de-loops, twisters, and death drops you'll find on the track ahead. I'll even show you how to love them, as they're what make the ride ahead so awesome and thrilling. And I want to help you master a few critical skills you'll need to turn this roller coaster car into a rocket ship that you can ride to the moon, far beyond what you can even dream possible. And I do believe that there's some serious truth behind that. We are in a critical point where we can really take advantage of what's available. And if we're not doing that, if we're not actively doing that, we're going backwards. So he says that by reading this book, you'll gain the successful knowledge on how to become an entrepreneur. You'll be a lot tougher, you'll be well equipped for the ride, and you'll be more confident than ever. So I want to get your feedback. Obviously, this is my first check-in for this book, so I don't really know what the rest of the content in this book is. I think there's going to be some testimonials from other entrepreneurs, as well as Darren Hardy putting in his 2 cents, which would make a lot of sense because Darren Hardy himself is very successful. So I want to get your feedback and telling me what your thoughts are on this book. If you've read it already, or if you're familiar with these chapters, or with Darren Hardy himself, I want to get your feedback. So leave your comments below, and don't forget to hit subscribe.